My name is Claire Dawson. I am 32 years old, and last month, my family tried to bury me alive. No, not literally with dirt and a shovel. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they did something far worse. They smiled at my hospital bed, signed the DNR papers, and whispered to the doctors that I was not worth saving. Then they went home, changed the locks to my house, and called the insurance company. They thought I was in a coma, unresponsive, unaware. They thought I would die quietly, with no resistance. But I heard every word. Every single word. And when I woke up, broken and bruised but breathing, I made a promise to myself. If they wanted to steal my life, my house, and the money I worked my whole damn life for, they were going to have to fight the real me. And this time, I was done playing the good daughter. Oh my God, they had no idea who they were messing with. If you have ever felt like your family only loved the version of you that benefited them, if you have ever wondered if they'd show up for you when it truly mattered, you might want to stay till the end of this story. Because what I discovered in that hospital room shattered everything I thought I knew about love, blood, and betrayal. Favorite. Not when I was a child, not when I graduated college, not even when I bought my first house at 29, paid for with my own savings and not a single cent from my parents. But I wasn't the rebel either. That was my older brother, Evan. He dropped out of community college, got arrested twice before 30, and yet somehow remained the apple of my parents' eye. My role in the family was functional. I existed to babysit, to keep secrets, to help out at family gatherings, to show up and smile but never, ever to ask for more than what was offered. Which wasn't much. I used to think it was just their way. Cold, practical, a bit detached, but never malicious. Oh, how wrong I was. Growing up in our modest suburban home in Oregon, I learned early that silence was safer than honesty. I once told my mom I felt left out when Evan got a birthday trip to Disneyland and I got a card with $20. Her response: "You should be grateful you didn't get nothing. Life doesn't hand things to people who whine." So I stopped whining. I studied hard, graduated valedictorian, got into university on a full ride. I worked 2 part-time jobs to afford rent and textbooks. No one ever visited me on campus. No care packages. Not even a single call during midterms. When I got pneumonia my sophomore year and ended up in urgent care, I called my mom. Her voice was distant, distracted. "Claire, I'm in the middle of dinner prep. Can you call me back later?" She never did. So by the time I was in my 30s, I had already built walls around my heart so high that even I forgot what was buried behind them. But I didn't resent them. Not really. I just adapted. I learned how to do life alone. I bought my own furniture, read my own contracts, taught myself how to change a flat tire and budget for taxes. I watched friends lean on their parents, cry to their siblings, bring plus ones to holidays. I, meanwhile, RSVP'd solo to everything. But I was doing okay. No more than okay. By 32, I owned a small but beautiful 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood just outside Portland. I had a job I loved as a project manager at a local software company. I had health insurance, a Roth IRA, and God bless young me, a hefty life insurance policy just in case anything ever happened. I had no idea how much that just in case would come to matter, and neither did my family. It started with a headache. Not the kind that goes away after 2 Tylenol and a nap. No, this one pulsed behind my eyes like a living thing. It throbbed when I stood up, when I turned my head too fast, when I looked at screens for too long. I chalked it up to stress. I was overseeing a major system overhaul at work, and I hadn't taken a vacation in over 9 months. So I pushed through it, like I always did. But on a Wednesday morning in March, I collapsed in my driveway while locking the front door. The neighbor's Ring camera would later show me crumpling like a rag doll, face first onto the concrete. I was unconscious before I hit the ground. I woke up barely in a white room that reeked of antiseptic. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't even open my eyes, but I could hear. I heard the hiss of machines, the low beeping of heart monitors, footsteps, voices, conversations I was never meant to hear. I heard a nurse whisper, "She's stable for now, but her blood pressure's tanking." I heard a doctor say, "We need authorization for emergency intervention. Who's listed as next of kin?" And then I heard the most chilling voice I've ever known. My mother. Claire doesn't have a husband. She never talks about friends. So yes, we're her only emergency contacts. There was a pause, a shuffling of papers. "But we didn't approve any surgery," my father added. "She wouldn't want to be kept alive like this." "Sir," the doctor said calmly, "she has a chance at recovery, but we need consent." "I'm sorry," my mother replied coldly. "We don't want to proceed. If it's her time, then it's her time." I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the oxygen mask off and tell them I was still here, still alive, still holding on, but I couldn't move. All I could do was listen. And then I heard it. My brother's voice, Evan. "So what happens now if she dies? What happens to her assets?" Oh my God. The room spun around me. Or maybe it was just my brain tearing itself apart trying to process what I was hearing. "She owns that house." "Right?" Evan asked. "And didn't she have some kind of life insurance policy through work?" There was an awkward silence. "We don't know the full details," my father finally said, "but I believe the beneficiary is still listed as us." "Then let's just wait a little before signing anything. No rush," my mother said. No rush? Unbelievable. Some people say being in a coma feels like sleeping. Others say it's like being trapped in a dream. But for me, it felt like being buried alive inside my own body. I could hear everything, but I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't speak. I was locked in completely aware while my family stood around my bed and plotted my death. They thought I was gone. They thought I was unconscious, unaware, already drifting toward the grave. But I was awake. Oh my God. I was awake, and I heard every damn word. The doctors called it a state of minimal consciousness, not quite vegetative, but unresponsive due to the swelling in my brain. The neurologist, Dr. Jensen, explained it to someone on the phone. She's not brain dead, but the damage to her temporal lobe is severe. We've induced coma to give the brain a chance to recover. Every day, someone came in to adjust tubes, check machines, clean my body, and every day, I prayed for something to break the silence, someone to care, someone to believe I was still in there. That someone came on day 4. Her name was Nurse Emily. "You're still in there, aren't you?" "Claire," she said softly, as she adjusted my IV. I wanted to cry. She continued talking through her shift, telling me what she was doing, humming Taylor Swift songs, giving weather updates, even venting about her dating life. "I'm not leaving you alone," she whispered once, "not after what your family said." I didn't understand what she meant until I heard it again. My mother. This time on the phone. In the hallway just outside my room. "I just want this over with. It's dragging on," she snapped. "No, we haven't signed anything yet. The doctors keep asking, but what if she survives? Then what? We have to explain ourselves." I heard footsteps approaching. My brother, Evan. "Did the insurance company call back?" he asked. "They're still verifying." My father muttered, "It's a sizable policy. We need to be patient. What about the house? Evan asked again. She doesn't have a will. If she dies unmarried and childless, it defaults to her next of kin, my mother said. Unbelievable. They weren't grieving. They weren't scared. They were circling like vultures. My home, my savings, my life insurance. They had turned my tragedy into a business opportunity. It was Nurse Emily who changed everything. She began documenting what she heard, recording parts of conversations on her phone, not because she expected legal trouble, but because, in her words, something about this doesn't sit right. She even spoke to the hospital's legal liaison. She's awake. She told Dr. Jensen one morning. I saw her fingers twitch during suctioning. She's probably just reflexively responding. The doctor replied, flipping through my chart. No. Emily insisted. She squeezed my hand when I asked her to. That was the first time in days that I felt anything close to hope. Because it was true. I had squeezed her hand. Barely, weakly, but enough. But the next few days were a blur of whispered encouragement and blinking lights. Every small movement became a fight. Every breath felt like swimming upstream through mud. But I wasn't giving up. I had something stronger than fear fueling me. I had fury. And oh, it burned. By the end of that week, I was transferred out of the ICU. I could move a little, open my eyes for a few seconds at a time. I was still on oxygen. My voice was non-existent. But I was no longer dying. At least, not medically. Emotionally, that was another story. When they finally took the breathing tube out, my first word came out cracked, barely audible. Water. Emily was there. She cried. You're back, she whispered. You're really back. She held the cup to my lips and helped me sip. It felt like swallowing glass. But I was alive. More importantly, I was aware. And I remembered everything. 2 days later, my business partner, Tasha, arrived. Emily had called her after digging through my phone and realizing she was listed as an emergency contact. Tasha was like a sister to me, a real one, not by blood, but by years of trust, friendship, and war stories from startup hell. She stood at my bedside, eyes wide, hand covering her mouth. Jesus, Claire, you look like hell. I gave her the tiniest smirk I could manage. Better than dead. I croaked. She nodded, tears falling immediately. Your family. They didn't tell me anything. I had to find out from the hospital's legal office. They tried to stop your treatment. Did you know that? I nodded slowly. Tasha's face hardened. They also tried to get into your house. Of course they did. She sat beside me and pulled out her phone. They went to the county clerk's office, tried to file an emergency conservatorship, claimed you were incapacitated, that you wanted them to handle your estate. They want my house, I whispered, voice still rough. They want more than that, she said grimly. Your life insurance through work. $500,000. I checked. $500,000, oh my God, I was worth more to them dead. But not today, not tomorrow, not ever, because I wasn't dying. I was healing, and I was coming back with a vengeance. I was still in a hospital gown, hooked up to IV fluids and moving slower than a turtle. But my mind was razor sharp. Tasha sat beside me, scrolling through emails from the HR department at my job. Your life insurance policy names your parents as beneficiaries. You never changed it, she said quietly. You filled it out when you were first hired. Remember? Before things got really bad with them. I winced. Yeah, that was back when I still thought maybe they'd show up for me one day. Back when I still thought they cared. I looked away, jaw tightening. Can we change it now? Tasha nodded. Already filed the request. We're adding me as the emergency contact and freezing all changes until you're back on your feet. I also contacted an attorney. A damn good one. That attorney was James Riley Sharp, strategic and ruthless in the way I needed. He came to my hospital room with a leather briefcase, kind eyes, and the demeanor of a man who'd seen too many families go to war over money. Miss Dawson. He greeted me. I want you to know I believe you, and more importantly, I can prove everything. He asked me to recount what I'd heard while unconscious. Every word, every detail. So I did. I told him about the DNR conversation, the hesitation to authorize surgery, the mention of the life insurance, the house. He took notes quietly, nodding, his eyes never leaving mine. And you say Nurse Emily may have recordings? She does, I whispered. She said she started documenting everything. She knew something wasn't right. James turned to Tasha. Get her consent and secure those files. We'll need every bit of that if we go to court. Then he pulled out a file from his briefcase. Here's the real kicker: your family filed for emergency conservatorship 2 days after your surgery. They told the court you were permanently incapacitated, claimed you had no other friends or support system, and that they needed access to your estate immediately. What the hell? I felt my stomach twist. They were trying to take everything. James nodded grimly. Your house, your car, your accounts, even your medical decisions. If they had succeeded, they could have removed you from care legally. You would have died. Claire, they were counting on it. Oh my God. I clenched the sheets beneath me. I need to get out of this hospital. James raised a hand. Not yet. You're not strong enough. But we can start making moves from here. First step, we file a restraining order. Second, we notify the probate court that you're conscious and legally competent. And third, we prepare for a full-scale fight. Tasha placed a hand on my arm. You're not alone in this. For the first time in days, I believed it. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emily provided audio clips clear, time-stamped recordings of my parents and Evan talking about money, insurance, and whether I would make it. One clip in particular made James sit up straighter. In it, my mother said, well, if she dies, it solves everything. No need to argue over who gets what. The policy comes straight to us. Unbelievable. That was the moment I stopped feeling shocked. I wasn't the daughter they mourned. I was a payout, a convenient tragedy. The recordings, combined with medical records and the signed DNR refusal, were more than enough to halt their legal case. James submitted a motion to the court to dismiss the conservatorship. He also arranged for a private security firm to change the locks on my house, secure the property, and install surveillance. They still have keys, he explained. And if they're willing to let you die for money, they're willing to break into your home. Meanwhile, Tasha reached out to my HR department and froze all policy actions. She even got them to place a temporary block on any insurance claims while legal proceedings were underway. You're not dead yet, she joked darkly. And they're not getting a dime until you say so. My body was still weak, but I could feel the strength returning to me, not in my muscles, but in my voice. I began writing, not emails, not texts, but a letter. A long, brutal, honest letter. One that would destroy their carefully polished image. One that would rip the mask off their loving family act. One they would never forget. At night, I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, playing every conversation back in my mind. I remembered the moment I signed the life insurance form. I remembered how proud I was the day I bought my house, the key warm in my palm, the paint still fresh. I remembered calling my parents, hoping they'd be proud too. They never returned the call. And now, here they were, trying to take it all. No. Not this time. This time, I wasn't going to beg for their love. This time, I was going to make sure they never got the chance to hurt me again. 3 weeks after the accident, I was cleared for discharge. The doctors called it a miracle. The swelling in my brain had subsided faster than expected. My motor function was returning, though still limited. I needed a walker, daily therapy, and strong anti-seizure meds. But I was stable. More than that, I was determined. Tasha came to pick me up in her car. I sat in the front seat, staring at my reflection in the side mirror. The bruises were still there, faded, yellowing. My collarbone was wrapped tight under layers of support. I didn't look like myself, but I had never felt more like me. We didn't go to my house. Not yet. James had advised I stay with someone else while we prepared for court, so I moved into Tasha's guest room, small, clean, filled with natural light. It became my war room. We set up a whiteboard, scribbled timelines, printed documents, security footage, Nurse Emily's recordings, my hospital chart, my original DNR form unsigned by me, rejected by my parents, and of course, the emergency conservatorship documents they had submitted behind my back. I highlighted the date they filed it, March 12th. That was 2 days after my surgery, the same day Evan called the insurance company. Unbelievable. They had left my hospital room and gone straight to a lawyer. James called with an update. Your parents have hired representation. They're claiming the DNR conversation never happened, that they never refused care. They say the doctors misunderstood. I clenched my jaw. We have recordings. We have timestamps. He paused. They're also denying the conservatorship was for financial gain. They're framing it as concern. Said you were vulnerable, alone, that they were just trying to protect your assets. I laughed bitterly. They mean steal them. Exactly, James replied. We knew they'd fight back. My parents had spent decades cultivating their image community board members, donors, churchgoers. They weren't going to let it fall apart without a fight. But they had one fatal weakness. They still thought I was weak. They didn't know about the footage. James had installed hidden cameras throughout my house front door, hallway, kitchen, and my bedroom, all motion triggered, all synced to a cloud server I controlled. The security company had changed the locks, but we suspected they still had a way in. Maybe a hidden key. Maybe Evan knew how to pop the side window. Whatever it was, we were ready. And 2 nights later, they took the bait. At 2:17, my phone buzzed. Notification from the security app. Motion detected living room. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Tasha was already awake, laptop open, streaming the feed. Got them, she whispered. There they were, my mother, wearing gloves, my father, shining a flashlight toward the bookshelf, Evan lagging behind, carrying a bag. They weren't looking around in panic. They weren't shocked the locks had changed. No, they came in like they belonged, like they'd done this before. My father walked straight to the filing cabinet, tried to open it, found it empty. My mother headed for the side drawer in the kitchen, the one where I used to keep spare keys and old tax forms. Then I heard it. Where did she hide it? My mother snapped. She must have changed the passwords. She's probably hiding the insurance paperwork, my father muttered. Or the deed. Evan yawned. She'll never walk again. What's the point in all this? That one stung, but not enough to stop me from hitting the record button. James arrived at the house the next morning with a flash drive. We have them on camera. I told him, trespassing, looking for documents, talking about hiding things. This isn't concern, it's theft. He nodded. It's also leverage. We filed a motion to submit the footage as evidence in the conservatorship hearing. James also contacted the local police. Technically, what they did was illegal, entering a home without permission after a legal lock change. But that wasn't the win I wanted. I didn't want them arrested. I wanted them exposed for who they really were. James scheduled the court date. I would appear in person, wheelchair or not, cast or not, bruises, tremors, cane, IV line didn't matter. I wanted them to see me, alive, present, fully aware of what they had done. The letter I had been writing, it was ready. 10 pages, titled in bold to the people who tried to bury me. I gave it to James with one instruction: leave it on the dining table at my house the morning they come to collect personal items. They'd filed the request with probate court claiming they wanted family heirlooms before the house was reassigned. We let them think they still had a chance. Let them think I was still too broken to fight back. And then, we gave them just enough rope to hang themselves. Saturday, 10:00 a.m. sharp. The morning my family came to my house to collect what they called sentimental belongings. The probate court had granted them a 2-hour window. James had already placed the letter on the dining room table. Just like I asked. Centered. Visible. Unavoidable. The security cameras were rolling. I watched from Tasha's laptop, sitting on the couch, legs propped up on a pillow. Emily brought coffee. Tasha brought pastries. I brought rage. At 10:06 a.m., their car pulled into the driveway. My mother stepped out first, wearing pearls. My father adjusted his cufflinks. Evan looked bored, scrolling through his phone, like this was just another errand. They unlocked the front door with a key that no longer worked. My mother jiggled it, frowned. My father tried. Nothing. Evan shrugged. Try the back. They walked around to the back patio, also locked. Then they rang the doorbell. Nothing happened. Finally, my mother pulled out her phone and made a call. We let it ring. No answer. After a few minutes, they called the court liaison, who reminded them, you have access, but the current owner isn't required to assist. The house has been secured. They looked annoyed, but eventually used the court-issued access code for the digital lock. When the door clicked open, I leaned forward. This is it, I whispered. They stepped inside, pausing just beyond the entryway. The house looked exactly the same: warm wood floors, framed photos, the faint scent of lavender, my house, my life, the one they tried to erase. My father was the first to notice the letter. What's this? He muttered, picking it up. It's addressed to us. My mother took it from his hands, reading the first lines out loud. To the people who tried to bury me. She went pale. Evan peered over her shoulder. Is this from Claire? She didn't answer. The letter detailed everything. How I heard every word they said while I lay paralyzed in the hospital bed. How they refused to authorize treatment. How they filed for control of my estate before I was even stabilized. How they broke into my home searching for documents and deeds. How they spoke about me not as a daughter, but as a financial asset. And then came the part that turned them to stone. I forgive you, I had written, but not for your sake, for mine, because I refuse to carry the weight of your betrayal into the next chapter of my life. I included copies of the security footage, still images, timestamps, audio transcripts, and legal documents, the rescinded DNR, the block on the insurance claim, the court motion to dismiss their conservatorship. My voice came through in writing, loud and clear. I am alive, I am aware, and I am not yours to control. On the screen, I watched as my mother sat down slowly, letter trembling in her hands. My father stared ahead blankly. Evan stood frozen, arms crossed, lips tight. Then Allison appeared. She had arrived separately. I didn't know she was coming. I hadn't seen my sister in years. She stepped inside quietly, pausing in the doorway. What's going on? My mother turned to her. Claire, she's written us this letter full of lies. Allison raised an eyebrow. Lies. She's twisting everything, my father added. We were trying to help her. We didn't know she was conscious. The DNR was a misunderstanding. Allison didn't respond. She reached over, took the letter from my mother's hands, and began reading it herself. Slowly, carefully. Halfway through, she whispered, "Oh my God." Then she looked up. You told the hospital she wasn't your responsibility, that you didn't want to authorize treatment. It's not that simple. My mother insisted. We were overwhelmed. We thought she wouldn't make it. You thought she wouldn't wake up, Allison snapped. So you figured you'd get the house and the check. I cannot believe this. Claire is your daughter. She's your sister, my father corrected. No, she's more than that, Allison said, voice breaking. She's the only one in this family who ever told the truth. I froze. On the screen, my mother stood up. We are not going to let her destroy this family with her bitterness and victim stories. We've sacrificed for her. Allison folded the letter. No, you've used her, and she finally stopped letting you. Then she walked out. Tasha let out a low whistle. Did you know your sister would be there? I shook my head. No idea, but I'm glad she was. James arrived an hour later. They read it. Oh yeah, I said, and Allison walked out on them. He smiled slightly. Then I think they know what's coming. Later that evening, my parents' lawyer contacted James. They wanted to settle, drop the conservatorship case quietly, avoid court, no statements, no press, just make it go away. Cowards. We said no. I wanted this to be public, on record, documented. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I was doing it for every daughter who ever lay in a hospital bed, waiting for her parents to fight for her and watch them walk away instead. The courtroom wasn't packed, but it didn't need to be. My parents were there. Evan, too. Their lawyer, my lawyer, a judge, a few legal clerks, and Allison sitting in the back row, arms folded, face unreadable. I entered in a wheelchair, legs still unsteady, but spine straight. I wore a black blazer, my hair pulled back, my hands trembling slightly from nerve damage I was still recovering from. But when I looked at my mother, she flinched. Good. James leaned down. You ready? Born ready, I whispered. The judge opened proceedings with procedural calm. This hearing is to determine the legitimacy of the emergency conservatorship request filed by Richard and Margaret Dawson on behalf of their daughter, Claire Dawson, and to review submitted evidence in opposition. He glanced at my parents' lawyer. You may begin. Their attorney stood. Your Honor. My clients believed their daughter was incapacitated, permanently. They filed for conservatorship only to protect her property and ensure her medical care would be properly managed. The judge nodded. And were they informed of her prognosis at the time? There was uncertainty. The medical staff conveyed she may not recover. James stood. Objection, Your Honor. May I submit Exhibit A? The judge gave him a nod. Proceed. James placed a flash drive on the desk. This footage, taken from the hospital's security system, documents Mr. and Mrs. Dawson's conversation with hospital staff. In it, they state, and I quote, "She's not our responsibility, and we owe her nothing." They refused to authorize life-saving surgery, not out of confusion, out of convenience. The courtroom was silent. James continued. Additionally, we have voice recordings made by a registered nurse present during their visits. In one, Mrs. Dawson is heard saying, "If she dies, it solves everything." In another, they discuss how to access her insurance payout. Gasps weren't audible, but the judge's eyes narrowed. And finally, James added, they filed for control of Ms. Dawson's assets 2 days after surgery. The same day they attempted to access her house and contact her employer regarding the life insurance policy. We have documents, call logs, and security footage of them entering her home without consent. He turned toward me. Ms. Dawson is here today. Conscious, coherent, fully competent, and she would like to speak. The judge looked at me. You understand this is your choice. I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. He gestured, then please proceed. My fingers gripped the sides of my wheelchair as I rolled forward slightly. I don't remember the crash. I began. I don't remember the ambulance or the first few days, but I remember hearing my mother tell a doctor I wasn't worth saving. I remember hearing my father ask about insurance. I remember hearing my brother say I'd never walk again. So what was the point? I paused. I was conscious, trapped, paralyzed, but I heard everything, every word, every plan, every lie. I turned toward my parents. You didn't cry for me. You didn't ask if I was in pain. You asked if I had a will. You didn't bring flowers. You brought a lawyer. You didn't fight for my life. You filed paperwork to take what I built. My mother opened her mouth, but the judge raised a hand. Let her finish. I looked down at my lap, then back up. You always said I was independent, that I didn't need you, that I was cold, distant. But maybe I became that way because deep down, I knew I was never your daughter. Not really. I was your tax deduction, your spare child, your plan B if Evan failed again. I inhaled, deep, steady. But now, you don't get to claim me. Not in court, not in life, not in memory. You left me to die and now you want to call it love. I turned to the judge. I am requesting that the conservatorship be dismissed permanently. I am fully capable of managing my life, my estate, my recovery. What I need protection from is them. Silence, heavy, sharp. Then the judge spoke. Request granted. The conservatorship is dismissed with prejudice. This matter is closed. My parents didn't speak. Evan stared at the floor. My mother's lips were tight. My father had that same expression he always wore when he lost a golf game frustrated, but too proud to admit defeat. As I rolled out of the courtroom, Allison followed me. You were incredible, she said softly. You didn't just win. You burned them down. I looked at her. I wasn't trying to burn them down. She tilted her head. Then what were you trying to do? I answered without hesitation. I was trying to stop living like I owed them something. 3 weeks after the hearing, I walked shakily, stubbornly into my own house. No wheelchair, no IV pole, just a cane and the steely determination of someone who refused to be defined by other people's abandonment. The locks had been changed again. Every inch of the house had been dusted, reset, refreshed. The scent of betrayal still lingered in the walls, but I would repaint that too, one room at a time. Tasha helped me move in. Emily brought a care basket. Allison brought herself. She showed up the second night with 2 cups of tea and a look I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, unsure, hopeful, scared to say the wrong thing. Can we talk? She asked. We sat on the front porch, the sun setting behind the trees. She took a deep breath. I didn't know. About what they said. About what they tried to do. I swear. Claire. I know, I said. I didn't defend you. For years, I let them treat you like an afterthought, and I never asked why. That's true, I said honestly, but you're here now. She looked at me, eyes full of guilt. Is that enough? I thought about it. No, but it's a start. And it was. Over the next few weeks, Allison came by more often, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with nothing but quiet. We didn't force closeness. We just let it happen. Slowly, naturally. We cooked dinner together once. We watched a terrible reality show and laughed until my stitches ached. She even stayed over one night when I had a panic attack at 300 a.m., sitting beside me until I could breathe again. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but it was real. Meanwhile, I kept rebuilding. I returned to work part-time, handling remote tasks while still in physical therapy. Tasha and I revamped our app this time with a personal twist. We were developing a tool that would allow patients in altered consciousness to signal awareness through eye movement and micro-responses. For people like me, I said, who were awake but voiceless. Call it bridge, Tasha suggested, because that's what you're building a bridge back. God, I nearly cried. Emily stopped by every weekend, brought banana bread, magazines, terrible gossip. She never asked how I was healing, she just made me feel like I wasn't alone. James sent updates from his office, including a notice that my parents had left town, moved to Florida, started fresh. No apology, no explanation, just silence. Good, let them rot in comfort. I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need closure. What I needed was peace. And slowly, I was finding it. One Sunday, we had a little dinner. Just me, Allison, Tasha, Emily, and James. A potluck, nothing fancy. Just warmth, wine, and a lot of laughter. As we sat around the table, I looked at each of them, the nurse who believed in me, the friend who fought for me, the sister who returned, the lawyer who never flinched. None of them were related to me by blood, but they showed up when it mattered. That's family. Not who you share DNA with, but who holds your hand when you're too broken to ask for help. That night, after the dishes were done and the house quieted, I sat on the porch with Allison. Fireflies blinked in the distance. We said nothing for a while, just listened to the world being still. She finally asked, "Do you ever wonder where they are now?" I shrugged. Sometimes, but it doesn't hurt anymore. "How did you make it stop?" she whispered. I thought for a long moment, then said, "I stopped needing them to be people they never were, and I started building a life without their permission." 1 year to the day after the accident, I stood in front of the mirror, fastening the last button on my dress shirt. My hands were steadier now. My balance had returned. My scars, visible and invisible, were still there, but I didn't hide them anymore. That evening, I walked onto a small stage at a local health conference. I wasn't there to pitch a product or give a TED Talk. I was there to tell the truth. "My name is Claire Dawson," I said, "and last year, I died. Not technically, but emotionally. I was lying in a hospital bed, unable to move or speak, while my own parents stood at my bedside and decided I wasn't worth saving." The room was silent. I heard them say I was a burden, that I didn't matter, that I was easier to manage dead than alive. And then I came back. I spoke about betrayal, about surviving not just the crash, but the abandonment that followed, about how life sometimes breaks you not with impact, but with silence, with the people who were supposed to love you the most, walking away when it mattered most. But I also came back. I said, to a nurse who refused to leave my side, to a best friend who fought for my legal rights, to a sister who found her voice, and to a lawyer who believed the truth mattered more than anyone's reputation. I looked out across the audience, voice steady. I came back to a different kind of family, not the one I was born into, but the one I chose, the one that chose me. Applause followed, not thunderous, just enough. Quiet, honest, like the peace I had been building piece by piece. That night, back home, I sat alone on my porch. No more monitors, no more court battles, No more waiting for an apology that would never come. I watched the wind move through the trees and thought I made it. They tried to bury me, but I wasn't a body. I was a seed. I didn't just survive. I grew. And if you're listening to this, if your own family ever made you feel like you weren't worth the air you breathe, I need you to hear me now. You are not their shame. You are not their silence. You are not their control. You are yours. Your life, your story, your name. Write it in fire if you have to. Shout it from a courtroom. Whisper it in a hospital bed. Just don't let them steal your voice. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is live. Really live. For yourself. Not for the approval that never came. Not for the inheritance they tried to steal. But for the person you were always meant to be. And if this story meant something to you, if you've ever been told you were hard to love or easy to replace, then please subscribe, share this. Not for me, but for the next girl lying in a hospital bed, wondering if anyone will show up for her. Let's be the ones who do.